Texas. One of the most American states in all the country. They've got football.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is like a man walking on the moon. Ever before.
Oil.
Drink your milkshake.
And oh yeah, Chuck Norris. What if I told you that Texas used to be part of Mexico?
Oh my God!
Welcome to US History with Mr. Rowe, and today we're going to be talking about the Texas Annexation. Immigration. That's when people move from one country to another country. It happens all the time today, and it definitely happened a lot during Manifest Destiny. The year was 1820, and Americans were moving out west for fertile land that wasn't always theirs. That's right. Two American settlers, Moses Austin and his son Stephen Austin, wanted to move into a territory known as Texas. The only problem was that Texas wasn't part of the United States. It was part of Spain. Now, Texas was a huge territory, and it looked something like this. Sorry, like this. Spain was having trouble getting its own colonists to move out there. Most Spanish colonists are already settled in California, Colorado, New Mexico, Mexico, the Caribbean, Florida, Philippines, Central America, and South America. Woo! So there weren't too many Spanish colonists left to fully settle Texas. And Spain was worried about that for three reasons. First, if Spain didn't settle Texas, other countries could decide to settle Texas themselves. Secondly, the Spanish towns that were already in Texas were not really well defended, and they were being attacked by Native American tribes like the Comanche and Apache, who rightly saw Spain as a threat to their survival. And third, Spain wanted colonists to farm Texas for money.
I gotta do it, man.
Enter Moses and Stephen Austin. After several failed businesses, Moses and Stephen Austin saw Texas as a way to get rich. And since Spain needed settlers, they let the Austins right in.
Nice.
But then something crazy happened. When the Austins showed up in Spanish Texas, it was no longer Spanish Texas. They were actually in Mexico. That's right, when the Austins were moving to Texas, Mexico had a revolution for independence. Texas was now Mexican land, and this kind of freaked out Stephen Austin.
I'm freaking out, man.
He had come all this way, spent all this money, and didn't really know if Mexico was going to give him the same deal that Spain gave him to settle. But luckily for Stephen Austin, Mexico was a little bit busy with, I don't know, starting a country? So they kind of just let the Americans settle there as long as they agreed to 4 conditions. First, settlers had to leave the United States and become fully fledged Mexican citizens.
I am Groot.
Second, they had to follow Mexican laws.
I am Groot.
Third, they had to learn Spanish.
I am Groot.
And fourth, they had to join the Catholic Church. Austin and his American settlers agreed, so they were allowed to settle and start their colony in Texas, which they later named Austin. And boy did they settle! Southern slave owners looking for more land to spread out their cotton plantations flooded into Texas. And by 1830, there were 5 times as many American Texans than there were Mexican Tejanos. So tensions between the two groups began to rise. Many Texans refused to learn Spanish, convert to Catholicism, and refused to follow Mexican laws, even though they had promised to do so. And when Mexico outlawed slavery, tensions became tense. Texans began forcing slaves to come to Texas illegally, and also started disrespecting Mexican culture and Mexican law. And that's when General Santa Anna decided that something must be done. First, Santa Anna destroyed Mexico's new republic and named himself dictator for life. Then Santa Anna closed the border, preventing any new Americans from coming into Texas. And then he sent Mexican soldiers into Texas to force the American Texans to stop practicing slavery and to follow Mexican law.
Do it! Just do it!
Texans and some Tejanos were outraged at Santa Anna's actions, primarily doing away with the Mexican Republic. But Stephen Austin was like, okay, hold up. I got this. Let me go talk to Santa Anna. I'll try to figure things out, and I can totally get this guy to change his mind. Don't you worry.
5 minutes later.
Yeah, so Stephen Austin definitely couldn't change Santa Anna's mind, and he was thrown in jail. And this, like, really ticked off the Texans. Texan rebels near the city of San Antonio decided to take matters into their own hands and gain control of a mission known as the Alamo. Santa Anna saw this as a beginning of a rebellion and decided that he needed to squash this thing immediately. So he went over to the Spanish mission at the Alamo and asked the Texans to get out. In response, some Texans like William Travis and Davy Crockett were all like, no way, and they just fired cannons back at Santa Anna. And that's when Santa Anna raised a black flag, meaning
Enemy deserve no mercy.
the battle raged on for 90 minutes, both sides exchanging gunfire, but eventually Santa Anna's army was able to storm the fort and force the surrender of the Texan rebels. Instead of jailing the survivors of the assault, he decided to order their execution immediately. Santa Anna ended up killing everybody at the Alamo.
What will you learn? What will you learn? That your actions have consequences!
Now, Santa Anna was trying to stop a rebellion before it started, but by killing everybody at the Alamo, he kind of started one. So that's when Texas rebelled, and they put this guy, Sam Houston, in charge of the Texan militia. Now, Houston's army was small, and he knew that, and he knew that he had no way of fighting against the Mexican soldiers. So what he decided to do is run deep into the desert with his band of militia, hoping that Santa Anna's army would follow him. And they did. Now, this was a major mistake for Santa Anna.
That was a mistake.
He had a massive army, which required a lot of supplies to feed and to give drinking water to, and boots and uniforms, and they moved a lot slower because they were so big compared to Sam Houston's small band of militia. So eventually Santa Anna's army got super tired and they decided to take a rest at the San Jacinto River. Expecting Houston to attack at some point that night, Santa Anna kept his soldiers awake all night. But by early morning, when there was no Sam Houston to be found, Santa Anna figured that Sam Houston had probably just run further into the desert. So he decided to let his troops get some rest, and he himself took a nap. And that's when Sam Houston came barreling into the Mexican encampment.
Do a barrel roll!
Soldiers ran into the camp screaming, "Remember the Alamo!
Remember the Alamo! Remember the Alamo!
And they actually were able to defeat the Mexican army by catching them off guard.
Smack the lip, whoop, drop down, snap,
In exchange for his freedom, Santa Anna decides to give Texas what it wants, to be its own country.
You broke my nose!
Nah, looks better the other way.
In exchange for his freedom, Santa Anna agreed to let the Texans become their own country. And for 10 years, they're known as the Lone Star Republic. But Mr. Rowe, if Texas became its own country, why did the United States want it and stuff? Great question. Well, firstly, Texas was largely made up of Americans coming from the United States. Second, those Texans were pretty freaked out that Santa Anna at some point may come back, so for years they were constantly asking the United States to annex it for protection. Third, Texas had a lot of resources, like cotton. that would make the United States a lot of money if it were to annex it. And lastly, the year was 1845, James K. Polk was president, and Manifest Destiny was alive and well.
That's my opinion!
But the Senate was divided over annexation. Southerners wanted to add another slave state to the United States so they could spread slavery further west, while Northerners were terrified that this might cause a wave of slavery to move into the Western territories. Other senators were really worried that this would tick off Mexico and start a war. Regardless, James K. Polk believed in Manifest Destiny so much that he was able to convince Congress to annex Texas, making it the 28th state to join the Union. And that's kind of it there. That's how the United States gets Texas.
Wait a minute.
I know, you want to know why it's significant, right?
Yes! Yes! Yes!
You guys are some pretty awesome critical thinkers. Okay, well, the Texas annexation was significant for primarily 3 reasons. First, adding Texas as a slave state further divided the country over the issue of slavery, an issue that would cause civil war only 20 years after annexation. Second, annexing Texas did really tick off Mexico. Mexico really didn't trust the United States after this. Third, the United States and Mexico couldn't agree on a southern border, and this would later be used by none other than James K. Polk to start a war to get even more Mexican land. And that's kind of it. That's the story of how the United States got Texas.
Strip to the waist, grease up. Time to find out what you're made of. I won, he lost. That's good enough for me.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, or more importantly, just keep asking the big questions.